Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight. I'm Paris Schutz.
And I'm Brandis Friedman. On the show tonight, President Biden's paid parental leave plan could soon be on the chopping block. We weigh two sides of the issue.
A new effort aimed at spurring development around transit hubs on the south and west sides.
It's a really tight-knit community, and everyone knows each other.
The Blues Brothers, racetracks, and historic prisons. We visit Joliet as the next stop on our In Your Neighborhood series.
Brady keeps, throws, and caught!
After the Bears got owned by Aaron Rodgers, so to speak, up next, a trip to Tom Brady's Buccaneers.
Just keep swimming. Meet a woman taking her love for aquatic life and transforming it into a business. Find out how.
Musician Corky Siegel combines classical with the blues, creating a sound unlike any other.
And Brandis and Paris, as you mentioned, I'll be reporting live tonight from Joliet for our latest Chicago Tonight in Your Neighborhood series segment. Now, Joliet is a big suburb southwest of Chicago. It is home to a couple of racetracks. It is also the birthplace of Dairy Queen and Lionel Richie. For a time, it had the moniker Old Prison City, and that is because, yes, there is an operational state correctional center, Stateville, but also was once home to the Joliet Correctional Center. Part of that is just across the way. Other parts back right there behind me. It is currently operating as a haunted house, and we will have more on that later. Also, you might have heard Joliet in the news lately because the Illinois Attorney General's office has instigated a probe into policies and procedures for the Joliet Police Department. So also more on that. For now, though, back to you.
All right, Amanda, thanks very much. And now to some of today's top stories. The lone Illinois Congress member on the Select Committee to investigate January 6th speaks out in favor of referring former President Donald Trump aide Steve Bannon for criminal prosecution. Republican Adam Kinzinger voted in favor of the House resolution to hold Bannon in criminal contempt for his refusal to comply with a congressional subpoena to testify before the committee. The measure passed the House on a 229 to 202 vote, with 9 Republicans voting in favor. Bannon was reportedly in contact with top Trump officials in the days leading up to the domestic attack on the Capitol and on January 6th itself. Kinzinger says Bannon's excuse of executive privilege does not hold water.
Mr. Bannon, who is recorded as saying, quote, "It's all converging, and now we're on the point of attack tomorrow." Mr. Bannon said these things publicly as a private citizen, someone deeply involved with Stop the Steal movement, and he said them nearly 3 years after leaving his job at the White House.
The city's $16.7 billion spending plan is a step closer to reality. A city council committee approved a part of that plan today, namely the proposal to hike property taxes by $76 million. The total proposed increase will add $38 per year to the tax bill for the owner of a home worth $250,000, according to city officials. Another city council committee will consider the full plan tomorrow before it heads to a full city council vote. As the temperatures have taken a noticeable dip in the last 2 days, climate specialists are out with their winter prognostications. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Organization is predicting warmer than normal temperatures for Chicago and much of the Midwest this winter. However, the NOAA is also predicting higher than normal precipitation levels. The governmental organization credits a strong La Nina for impacting the weather patterns this year, with colder than normal temps expected for the northwest part of the country. And up next, Amanda Vinicky has a live report from Joliet, so please stay with us.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
Drive an hour southwest of Chicago, you'll be in Joliet, named after the French-Canadian explorer who once settled there. The sprawling southwestern suburb is still growing. It's the third largest city in Illinois after Chicago and Aurora, according to 2020 census data. Amanda Vinicki and producers Marissa Nelson and Acacia Hernandez traveled to Joliet for our latest Chicago Tonight in Your Neighborhood. And Amanda joins us, I believe, outside of Stateville Prison right now. Amanda.
Not Stateville, but yes, one of the other prisons. Stateville still operational. This one, not so much. Now, Paris, you referenced that this is a sprawling suburb, and in fact, several people that I spoke with today described it as a mini Chicago. There is a large train station and transit network, a couple of colleges, a theater, the Rialto, a baseball team, that's the minor league Joliet Slammers, get the prison reference there. Also, a football team. Now, granted, it's not pro football, high school, but Joliet Catholic High School does have enough championships under its belt that it is a source of local pride. And then also Joliet has something that Chicago doesn't have, a casino. Also a rich history, says Mayor Bob Odekirk.
Joliet is a big union town. A lot of history in this town, a lot of character, a lot of neighborhoods. We had different ethnic groups. It's kind of almost like a mini version of Chicago, where Joliet was its own city, different parishes all over town, different ethnic groups. It was really built on the steel mills, the iron works, the railroads, and the quarries, and of course the river. It's an old river town. So a lot of heavy industrial, heavy blue collar.
Even if you haven't made your way to Joliet, you might have seen some of the limestone from those quarries. It was used to build Chicago's old water tower, also the Illinois State Capitol and Old State Capitol building, and the Joliet Correctional Center. That is the prison where I am near. It became famous in the 80s when Joliet Jake Blues, a.k.a. John Belushi, was released from there in the opening scene of the Blues Brothers movie. Now, again, prison not operational anymore, but the city is leasing it and doing tours, and also haunted houses here right behind me by a different organization. Again, we'll have more on that. Now, still, the Stateville Correctional Center, as I said, run by the state, is here. There's also the Will County Jail. The fictional Blues Brothers may not have gotten into such wild shenanigans had Jake had benefited from the services like those offered by Agape. The social service agency provides HIV/AIDS care and prevention programs, as well as helping those who are previously incarcerated with reentry into society. Corrections medical case manager Sandy Weinstein actually visited the jail this afternoon for some of that work.
Some of the things that might be really stressful for them, we're kind of like, put some of that on us. Let us, take care of the things that might feel impossible for you right now. And then we kind of come up with goals, client-centered goals to sort of help them, get over those barriers, get through those barriers so, they don't end up ultimately going back to, into a correctional system.
A major issue in Joliet right now on the front end of the criminal justice system. There has been a lot of turnover at the police department, including the last police chief fired after just about 7 months on the job. And then last year in January, a 37-year-old man, Eric Lurie, died while in police custody. That prompted an unprecedented move on the part of the Illinois Attorney General, Kwame Raoul, whose office opened a probe last month into the Joliet Police Department. Officer Mike DeVito is president of what he calls the Blue Shirts Police Union, and he says initially that came as a shock, but he says the Attorney General's office confirmed that this investigation is not about any one incident or officer.
Look, we're good at what we do. The men and women here do our job. We do it right. We're a respected agency. The fact that they're here looking at us doesn't mean that we've done anything wrong, and I expressed to them that we should cooperate fully with this investigation and that we should continue to do the job exactly as we have always done it.
Another issue for Joliet right now, as it is elsewhere, of course, getting through and recovering from COVID. It has been hard on local businesses, including the cluster of racetracks just off of Old Route 66. In fact, the Speedway lost a NASCAR race to Wisconsin, a pretty big deal. And then also the Dirt Oval 66 track, which hosts monster trucks and demolition derbies, was closed for 20 months, reopening in May. Now, this is their last weekend for the season, and it's a special Halloween event. The eve of haunted destruction. There's going to be lawnmower races, kids power wheel races, and also school bus races. In fact, the track president herself may be racing behind a wheel of one of those buses.
We'll have 12 school buses, and they'll race in a figure-8 style. So they'll basically race in a large area and then cross the middle in a figure-8 style, and the first one to run 10 laps will win. A lot of people are afraid because they're so big, but they're very safe. I mean, think about it. Kids are on them, right? So they're really, really safe to drive, really, realistically. But it's fun to watch. We'll decorate them and paint them all like all different themes, Halloween themes, movie themes like that.
It's also going to be a Halloween costume contest, by the way. Now, elsewhere, 7 Joliet restaurants earlier this month formed an alliance. That is the Joliet Region Food and Beverage Association. Semino's Pizza co-owner Sue Schultz says that they exchange supplies, and also there's a staffing shortage, so they even share workers.
We have different distributors, so we're able to share information, bind together, and, you know, competition is such a good thing. It's not like back in the day where everybody was striving for their piece. Now we have to band together and help each other out because we're a family. We're, you know, the restaurants, we're all in the same community.
Semino's has been passed down through generations. Schultz says that she's been working at the restaurant since she was 12 years old. And there lies, I guess, a sort of juxtaposition of Joliet. You have a lot of families who have been here for generations. Their neighborhood homes, 100 years old or more. But also, again, this is a sprawling suburb that is rapidly annexing. So you have some neighborhoods and homes that are just about 10 years old or so. We're going to have more on both the haunted house here, or the haunted prison, I should say, as well as economic development in the area. But for now, back to you.
Man, it sounds like this weekend Joliet will be a place to party, karamu, and fiesta forever. Thanks very much. And now, Brandis, we go back to you.
Paris, thank you. One of the current controversial items in President Joe Biden's Build Back Better plan is paid family leave. It's even gotten Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, chiming in for support, writing to House Democratic leaders that, quote, when paid leave is a right, we're creating a foundation that helps address mental health outcomes, healthcare costs, and economic strength at the starting line. Now, this comes as it's reported that Biden informed Democrats that the emerging legislation will only provide 4 weeks of paid leave benefits instead of the initial 12 weeks. Joining us now with more are Todd Maish, CEO of the Illinois Chamber of Commerce, and Brenda Reyes, Director of Training and Curriculum with Health Connect One. Thanks to you both for joining us. So, Brenda Reyes, let's start with you, please. What kind of parental leave currently exists for families?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So I think that would vary depending on where we live in the country. But for the state of Illinois, currently there is no paid leave for parents. Most employers are, I wouldn't say at least following, but some communities may be aware of the MLA law, which requires unpaid leave for 12 weeks. So it's not currently paid in our state.
So you can take 12 weeks but not get paid. Otherwise, you're saying
Exactly.
unless it's the kind of thing that an employer implements, families don't have access to paid leave. So Todd Maish, Build Back Better originally called for 12 weeks of paid family leave. It's reportedly been reduced to 4 weeks. What do you think of this concept of paid family leave, and should businesses be responsible for employees being off for that long?
Surprisingly, I think the business community would be very open to a discussion as long as holistic about paid time off. But keep in mind, employers, not all of them across the board, because there's a difference between a Fortune 50 company and someone who's just getting started in a restaurant with 10 employees. They don't have the same resources, but we want them all to be successful. But there's paid sick leave, there's paid personal time off, paid vacation. So I think that the business community's biggest problem would be if we're just going to put this on top of all the existing benefits that are already there. And keep in mind, there are a lot of union contracts that have already been negotiated for a lot of this time off. And this could be a state mandate that simply puts more paid time off if it's not done correctly. So we don't know what this is at this point in time. It sounds like it's just another government mandate on small, medium businesses and businesses that have already negotiated a union contract.
Brenda, what do we know about how paid family leave benefits the family, particularly with regard to mental and physical health outcomes?
So that's an excellent question. We know that, for example, around lactation, breastfeeding, establishing a good supply of breast milk, human milk for babies, which is the best nutrition recommended for children. It's really the foundation of health that is recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics. We know that for birthing parents who return to work before 6 weeks postpartum, they are 4 times more likely to either not establish breastfeeding or stop early. And we know the benefits of human milk are imperative for our communities. That really are the foundation for the health. So, you know, the reduced ear infection, diarrhea, sudden infant death syndrome, infant mortality, diabetes. But there's also benefits for that birthing parent, reduce in cervical, ovarian, breast cancer, heart disease, obesity, high blood pressure, cardiac problems, child development. So there are many benefits that children can have from that establishment of and receiving human milk. So in addition to that, there's research on decreased postpartum depression too.
And Todd, what, you know, outside of this, what, you know, sort of access could families or should they have to paid leave when a new baby or a new child comes into the family? And how can businesses support that?
Sure. I think that our notion and most employers' notion is they want as much flexibility to go ahead and have a discussion with their employees and meet the needs of the organization and the fact that they have to be a profitable organization and decide what's best for them. So the issue we just discussed, very personal, sensitive, but why not allow employers and employees to make decisions for themselves as opposed to government mandates? So I think that that is the key point that we would make in a lot of areas, which is why not empower employees and employers to come together and decide for themselves what works best for their workplace, what works best for the employees' lives that they employ. So that is our general overarching position on these government mandates. Let people decide for themselves.
Now, Brenda, the intention has been that the cost of this would be covered by an increase in taxes on corporations, but some say that obviously that's going to be very expensive. What is your reaction to those who point to the cost as a reason for not implementing this?
So it costs us 13. You know, if we were able to support as a nation lactation and access to human milk for babies for at least 6 months, 90%. For 6 months, we are talking about saving $13 billion, right? And in addition to that, that's not costing work productivity. We're not looking at work productivity. We're not looking at absenteeism. We're not looking at death, disease of children. So there are, and this is a public health issue that our communities can really because we know that it is mostly African American and Latinx workers who have no access to any form of paid leave.
Okay, and that's where we'll have to leave it. My thanks to Brenda Reyes and Todd Maish for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Spurring development without displacement, building density, and encouraging more people to use transit to get around. Those are just some of the goals of a program that this week awarded microgrants to 11 equitable transit-oriented developments around Chicago. Joining us now to talk about these types of developments and to give us a look at 2 of the projects are Marley Schott of the group Elevated Chicago, which helped develop the city's equitable transit-oriented development pilot program, Anton Hilton, who's working to develop the Coalition Food Hall near the California Green Line station in Garfield Park, and Reverend Joseph Gordon, who's working to develop the mixed-use Gateway 79 project near the 79th Street Red Line station in Chatham. Welcome all of you to Chicago Tonight, and thanks for joining us. Marley, let's start with you, please. So for people who are not familiar with transit-oriented development, please give us a quick thumbnail on what that means.
Sure. So transit-oriented development has been around in the United States for about 30 years. It was created to help cities become more walkable, sustainable, better connected to transit, and less dependent on cars. What we found in Chicago, TOD is very young. Our first ordinance was in 2013. And we see that TOD is a great tool to develop our cities around our transit assets, but if we are not intentional about equity, it can be a driver of displacement, particularly of people of color.
Well, let's get into that briefly as well. What does it mean for it to be equitable?
What it means for it to be equitable is that it is community-driven, it's community-led, it's community-centered. These are projects that offer benefits to the legacy community rather than, oftentimes with TOD, it can be a gentrifying force, or it can, bypass communities altogether, particularly those communities that have been disinvested for decades. And so really keeping equity at the center means keeping the voice and the power of the community at the center, and really keeping the culture and protecting the legacy of these communities and the legacy residents of these communities.
And Anton Hilton, you're developing a food hall in Garfield Park with a focus on local entrepreneurs. Tell us about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, I'm Anton Hilton, Managing Director of Hilton Group. Also in collaboration with my partner, Espo Group, we're actually looking to bring plenty of cultural differences, to our food hall. One of the main goals was actually to create opportunities for employment. Here in East Garfield Park, literally, we don't have too many commercial opportunities for people to walk out of the door and find jobs. So that's the main goal of our coalition food hall. The other goal is we'd like to create a community investment vehicle. So oftentimes in our communities, individuals don't have an opportunity to participate in commercial development or even as an investor. So not only do we want to create a place for community to kind of gather and just have a good time and, eat and things of that nature, but we also wanted to provide an opportunity for community residents to actually own a piece and contribute and benefit from, the growth. So we're considered the anchor to kind of bring on this new idea, this new concept, and we're just looking to, do a really good job here.
Of course. And Reverend Gordon, you're developing a mixed-use site with retail and housing. How big of a concern is affordable housing in Chatham?
Sure. The problem with affordable housing in Chatham is similar to really the problem with affordable housing in the nation. And so oftentimes we look at affordable housing as a not in my backyard type problem. But we understand, we've done the research. We know that it has negative effects on communities, greater stress relating to food security, healthcare, retirement, and overall social stability as well. And so more often than not, particularly in urban areas like the city of Chicago, those persons who are most affected are persons of color. But since this is our backyard, we believe that we have a mandate, a calling to serve our community and to help meet the housing need through this mixed use development, seniors, as well as working families.
And Marley, how do these projects fit into the overall goals of this program?
Sure. All of these selected projects really focus and address community needs. They have actively engaged community stakeholders through the process. They will receive support and access to better coordinated resources and technical assistance. And so really, ETOD looks like community centers. It looks like improved food access. It looks like affordable housing, community spaces, health centers, improved walkability and safety, arts and culture. So all of these projects really, there were 11 selected. Each of them has some component of what we see ETOD being in the future.
Anton, does Garfield Park have anything like what this food hall is intended to provide?
No, we don't. Believe it or not, we're considered a food desert. I want to say maybe 10 years ago, there was a grocery store, Pete's Market, which was installed on Western and Madison, which is literally the only grocery store in the neighborhood. It's actually shared by multiple neighborhoods. You know, and honestly, I think, you know, I've been a part of the community for quite some time now. I've gone to all the meetings, and this is a need. You know, we need food. You know, we need culinary opportunities, you know, things of that nature. So we really just wanted to bring something cool here, diverse type of food. You know, the fabric of our community is changing, and just really make an impact. You know, again, I consider ourselves the first ones here to really come up with this idea and want to do a project like this here in East Garfield Park.
Reverend Gordon, Gateway 79 is set to fill a vacant plot of land. Are you hopeful that it'll help revitalize this part of the community?
Yeah, absolutely. Even after especially after conversations with our aldermen, and certainly this has long been a dream and a hope of our faith community, and we have found the right partners, and they've really highlighted the very things that we believe in, the very things that we've known. And so when we use that term gateway, we're literally looking to become a gateway to the Chatham community, but also hopefully spur other economic development in the area. Again, just like our partners who are both on the line and those persons who have been invited to share in this pilot program, our job, our responsibility is to provide hope. And so in this season, we believe that hope is going to come in the form of affordable housing, minority-owned construction, architecture, design, and retail jobs moving forward.
Okay, a lot to keep an eye out on as it progresses. Our thanks to Marley Schott, Anton Hilton, and Reverend Joseph Gordon for joining us. Best of luck to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And up next, we introduce you to a woman who turned her passion for aquatic life into a brand to help others. Spend Saturday evening with the Voices of Chicago. Latino voices at 6 and Black voices at 6:30. See you on Saturdays.
And there's still much more ahead on the show, including a worker shortage at an area haunted house. But first, have you ever wanted to get a fish but had no idea where to start? Chicago Tonight's Joanna Hernandez heads to meet an aquarist in Wicker Park who began creating educational aquarium videos during the pandemic, which led her to a new business venture.
Jamie Dalton doesn't have any furry pets, but has plenty of aquatic friends.
Someone asked me the other day how many fish I have, and I don't know. I mean, I would have to ballpark around 50.
From Harry, the eastern musk turtle.
Now he runs off with it.
To Lucy, her oxalotl, an adorable salamander.
My mother gave us fish. We were not allowed a dog when we were younger, so we had a lot of fish around. And so I always grew up with fish. I had betas growing up as well. And I always thought it was really interesting to learn more about how to properly care for them, because I do think people maybe have a misunderstanding for the care that different fish and animals need and the different requirements of a healthy setup.
In 2015, Dalton started Aquarium Info, a blog sharing information and tips to help others in building their fish tanks. During the pandemic, she decided to go a little further and transformed her second bedroom into a fully functioning fish studio.
This is going to be a great focal point for our tank. And we're going to surround this by java fern. These are java ferns. They're very narrow. With the pandemic, we didn't have many visitors coming here, and at the time I had 2 or 3 fish tanks, and I thought to myself, what a great opportunity to expand and really take my passion to the next level.
Dalton started creating educational tutorial videos on a variety of topics surrounding the care and options in bringing home the right fish, or as she calls them, wet pets.
I recently made an impossible 2-story fish tank. To do this, I turned one tank upside down on top of another tank. My fish are going to have a fish mansion. Do you think it's going to work? Make sure to keep watching.
It was just a matter of time that her videos were racking thousands of views and going viral.
I never expected it to get this big. It was amazing watching the growth. As I mentioned, over 2.5 million followers across platforms, which is mind-blowing to me.
With a growing fan base, she began selling aquarium kits.
This is a 4-gallon, I call it the mini kit, and it comes with a generous amount of sand that you'll need to kind of lay that foundation that you see here. Dragonstone, so you can choose between Dragonstone, which is this clay-based stone, or Siri stone, which is more of like a dark gray color. And then we also include the aquascaping tools. So a really great first step if you did want to get into the hobby.
What started as a passion project has boomed into a business, one that Dalton says she wants to keep sharing with others.
I'd love to potentially do some more kind of in-person once we're able to and it's safe, in-person events to kind of do demonstrations and really educate people about the fish keeping hobby. There's so much to know and so many people do have fish, whether that's a betta or a goldfish. So there's a lot of knowledge to share.
I'm convinced she can hear me.
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Joanna Hernandez.
To watch more of Dalton's videos, swim on over to our website. And now, Brandis, we toss it back to you.
Paris, thank you. Still to come on Chicago Tonight, the old Joliet prison opened as a haunted house this fall. And like other industries, it's facing a worker shortage. A daunting trip for Justin Fields and the Bears as they travel to Tampa Bay to face 7-time Super Bowl winner Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. And blues, harmonica, and piano player Corky Siegel shares why he thinks virtual showcases could continue even once the pandemic has ended. But first, some more of today's top stories. Chicago Public Schools is boasting another record high 5-year graduation rate, as well as the lowest ever 1-year dropout rate. The district says 83.8% of students graduated in the 2020-21 school year, up just a few points from last year's rate, which was just over 80%. But that's an increase of 27 points from 10 years ago when the rate was barely 57%. This year's dropout rate is 3.8%, and that's a 1.8% decrease from last year. And if you take the L or the bus to get around, the Chicago Transit Authority is hoping to make it cheaper using a ride pass. In its proposed $1.75 billion budget, the CTA proposes making some promotional fares and price reductions permanent on the 1, 3, and 7-day unlimited ride passes. So, for example, 1-day passes would cost $5 instead of $10. The transit agency says the passes generated more than 10 million rides over the summer months, and while ridership grew throughout 2021, it is still just half of pre-pandemic numbers. CTA also says it would lower its 30-day fare pass from $105 to $75 in response to the flexible work environment for many workers. Chicago's iconic Lakeshore Drive now also bears the name of the city's first non-indigenous settler, Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable. The city unveiled new signs today at Buckingham Fountain, but the Department of Transportation has begun installing them along the 18-mile stretch from Hayes Drive in Jackson Park to Hollywood Avenue on the northern end. Motorists will notice 12 large highway signs as well as 80 smaller street signs. The drive's full name is now Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable Lakeshore Drive. And now, Paris, we toss it back to you.
Okay, Brandis, thanks very much. And now we go back to Amanda, who has spent the day in Joliet as part of our In Your Neighborhood series. Amanda.
Yes, Paris, we're going to talk economic development here in Joliet and the surrounding areas. I'm joined now by Will Pryor with the Will County Center for Economic Development. Thank you so very much for joining us. Now, actually, Governor J.B. Pritzker and some other elected officials were recently here talking about some road work, everybody's favorite, I know, on I-80. But in fact, the mayor actually earlier said this is a project that's long overdue. What is happening in the I-80 corridor and why?
So it is a project that's long overdue. The I-80 corridor has been a funding priority for us for some time, and we're very grateful to the governor and to our state and local elected officials for the support they've given over the last few years to help secure the funding for that project. So it's $1.2 billion over the course of the next year to completely reconstruct Interstate 80 from the western Will County line to Route 30 in New Lenox. It includes capacity improvements, safety improvements, some things that are long overdue to help move traffic through Will County.
And experience some of that traffic myself. And part of that might be also because people might not realize, actually, Joliet is home to the largest inland port in all of North America. What does that mean? A whole lot of freight and a whole lot of trucks.
There's a whole lot of freight movement through Will County. One thing we do know from a study just a couple years ago, 3.5% of the national gross domestic product passes through Will County every year.
3.5%.
So it's a big chunk of commerce passes through here. We are North America's largest inland port. At one time, Joliet was home to a very large munitions facility. When that shuttered, they took the acreage and put roughly 19,000 acres into Medewan Tallgrass Prairie, which is very cool and should be on your list for your next visit. But they also created some intermodal yards. BNSF opened a large intermodal yard in 2002, Union Pacific in 2010, and between the two of them, they're capable of significant rail traffic every year and help deliver a lot of goods to the Midwestern United States from the West Coast ports.
Now, in terms of economic development, some recent big news otherwise, and that is Lion Electric is going to be coming to Joliet to build electric buses and trucks. So what impact is that going to have in terms of both the region and also transitioning for a new economy?
Yeah, it's such a cool project. So Lion is underway on constructing what, when it's completed, will be North America's largest facility of its kind, where they will build from end to end all electric school buses, transportation buses, and medium-duty trucks. That project really dovetails nicely with a lot of the other EV projects that are underway in the state today. Illinois has become very competitive in this new energy space, and Will County and Joliet in particular, where we're standing, we are just over the street from the old Joliet Iron Works site, which operated for nearly 100 years here. They ended up shuttering in the early 1980s when a lot of Midwestern production ended up moving out of the region. But our heritage really lies in the manufacturing space. We have the workforce, we have the talent, and we're showing that we can really compete in this space in a new manufacturing economy. I think it's great news for the region and for the state.
We've got probably about 30 seconds left. Why is it that this area was chosen?
I think a couple of big things. I mentioned the workforce. Our people can build anything. Will County is one of those few places that have added manufacturing jobs over the last 10 or 12 years. We have tremendous transportation assets. People can reach their customers around the world from right here in Joliet and in Will County.
And I have to apologize to you. I think I called you Will, got really excited about Will County. So that is Doug Fryer with the Will County Economic Development Center. Much appreciation to you, Doug, and back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Amanda. Well, if the Packers' Aaron Rodgers is technically an owner of the Chicago Bears, what would that make Bucs and former Patriots superstar Tom Brady? Actually, the Bears knocked off the defending Super Bowl champs last year, but prognosticators and Vegas odds makers are not giving the team much chance this weekend when the two teams face each other again, this time in Tampa. And joining us is James Big Cat Williams, former offensive lineman for the Chicago Bears from 1991 to 2002. James Big Cat Williams, always great to see you. Tough stretch here for quarterback Justin Fields. 2 Super Bowl contenders back-to-back, Hall of Fame quarterbacks back-to-back. What is his mindset going into this game at Tampa Bay?
Well, I think you heard him talk about it in some of his pregame talks this week. It's not really Fields against Rodgers or Fields against Brady. It's Fields against those opposing defenses. So, there are a lot of things that he can take from both of those quarterbacks as far as, them and their longevity and them being able to play at a high level for a long period of time. But other than that, he's got to concentrate on what he has to do this week versus a banged up but still very good Tampa defense.
And he's got to concentrate on just progressing as a rookie. We saw him have some great throws, great drives last week, and then other drives where he looked a little confused. Is this about where Bears fans should expect his progression to be at this point? He's a great talent, but still just a rookie.
Yeah, he is. He's a rookie. He has a lot of things to learn. And, hopefully in that building, week in and week out, they're giving him target points. They're giving him things that he needs to get better at week in and week out. And, explaining to him how he does those things. Now, him being a laid back type that he seems to be, you just hope that his study habits are great. And from what we've seen, they seem to be good. And, the sky's the limit as long as they can continue to teach, as long as they can continue to push him in the right direction and he does not get bored.
Yeah, a lot of mistakes are like holding on to the ball or throwing that interception when he thought there was a flag called. Aaron Rodgers on the other side last week caused quite a stir when the microphone picked him up yelling at the fans, "I own you, I own you." Caused a little bit of blowback, although it seems kind of in the spirit of the game. What do you make of those comments?
A friend of mine made the comment that, he'd have punched him in, he felt like punching him in the face. The ex-player in me feels the same way. I heard it and immediately wanted to punch him right in the throat. But, I understand. I get it. If you don't want him to come out and have the ability to talk that kind of trash, then you've got to beat him. So until you beat him, you have to deal with it.
If the Bears beat him next time, maybe they present him a contract that divests him of all the shares in the Bears and make him sign it. All right, so the Bears running game still looking good without its top 3 running backs. Khalil Herbert had a good game. You think it can keep that up against a very good Tampa Bay defense?
Well, Herbert has looked good. I don't know whether Williams is going to play or not, but the ability for them to rotate backs has kind of gone to the wayside. So you kind of need Herbert to play well. You need him to run the ball hard. You need him to be able to stand in there in pass protection and help protect Fields. You also need him to be, Fields' outlet. And once again, we're talking about, another rookie in that backfield, a rookie quarterback and a rookie back. So, mistakes are going to be made. Can you keep them to a minimum? And how well can that Bears offensive line do against a very formidable Tampa defensive line?
And they're going to have to do something because on defense, the Bears are going up against arguably the greatest, one of the greatest of all time, who seems to be playing better in his 40s than he did in his 20s. So what's the key on defense to containing Tom Brady?
Well, you have to use those big guys up front. Not only do they stop the run, but you look at Vita and Sue, and those guys are able to push that pocket. There's not going to be a whole lot of room for Fields to step up in the middle of that pocket. So, can Gladstone and Pierre-Paul keep him in the pocket, keep him contained? That is going to be their goal. It's
right.
Goal to try and figure out how, to work around that.
But what about on defense stopping Tom Brady?
I think it's about getting pressure. Not knowing whether Quinn is going to play hurts. But if they are at full strength, if you have Quinn out there, if you have Mack out there, we don't know what the deal is with Hicks right now, but those guys are able to put pressure on a quarterback. If they can do that and then play a little bit of zone defense behind it and keep those windows small, they stand a chance. But, it all depends on that front seven.
Vegas odds makers, as we mentioned, not giving the Bears much of a chance to even keep it close, even though the Bears beat this team last year. What's your fearless prediction this week?
Unfortunately, I just think Tampa is playing with too much right now. Like I said, with the injuries to Hicks, with the, COVID situation with Quinn, not knowing whether those two are going to play, not knowing whether they're going to be able to put the pressure on Brady that they need to, I've got to go 31-20, 21-24 Tampa Bay.
Well, maybe they can keep it close then. All right, James Big Cat Williams, thank you as always, and we'll see you next week.
Good talking to you, Paris. Thanks.
All right, you as well. And up next, we check back in with Amanda Vinicky from Joliet. But first, a look at the weather.
And now we check back in with Amanda, who spent the day in southwest suburban Joliet as part of our In Your Neighborhood series. Amanda.
Spent the day, but not yet the night. I am just outside of the old Joliet haunted prison. One of our loyal viewers actually said, is it a haunted house, a haunted prison? Actually, the haunted big house. So there we go, which is just open. We can hear some scary noises going on, and I am joined by the man behind it, Brian Kopp. Thanks so much, the senior general manager. So what can you tell us first, before we get to the scary stuff, about the history of the prison right behind us?
It was built in the late 1800s, and it was referred to as the annex or the women's prison, separate from the main Joliet haunted prison across the street, right, the Blues Brothers side. It was a women's prison until, I believe, the 1920s, and then overall closed up in 2002.
So I think across the street there are some paranormal tours going on. Without giving any secrets away, what goes on for those who dare enter?
So we have two attractions here. One is Ghost Chamber. It's actually inside an old cell block. There's nothing else like it around. It's the only place where you get to go to, you know, a haunted attraction actually inside a prison. You'll see the old cells. It's populated by our terrifying inmates. So it's a paranormal research facility. And then outside in the old prison yard, we have a more interactive attraction called the Forsaken, where you have an assault rifle and you do battle against some of the failed experiments from the research facility.
Yikes. And then there would be some people that really push back against this whole notion of haunted houses or prisons, if you will, that they're, you know, playing on stereotypes of those who are incarcerated or, you know, guns. How do you respond to that?
You know, I think it's really important to try to be, you know, cognizant of modern sensibilities. The last thing in the world that we want to do is upset anybody, offend anybody. At the end of the day, we're here to create an escape, someplace for people to enjoy and get away from everything, right? I mean, that's the idea. But at the same time, like it or not, prisons are a part of the world in which we live in. They are inherently scary, and that's what a haunted house is supposed to do, right? We're showing a place that you don't want to go. It's a bad place. It's a scary place. So,
and perfect for Halloween time. What do you do the rest of the year?
Well, we have haunted houses all over the country. We're the only haunted house companies in existence like that, 13th Floor Entertainment Group. So the rest of the year, we work on off-season events. We work on what the attractions are going to be next year, so that every year the show is bigger, better, more terrifying.
Yikes, again. All right, something that may be a problem for you is that we talk a lot about staffing shortages. Is that something that you're experiencing right now with those who want to go boo to those who enter? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very much so, unfortunately, right? Just like so many other businesses. So we're trying everything we can to try to get the place as staffed as I would like it. We have plenty of spooky monsters inside, and event staff and security, but I'm always looking for more so that I can make it bigger and better.
Do you need any special skills?
You don't. We do on-the-job training. All you need is a good attitude, enthusiasm, and a love for all things Halloween. So you can go to hauntedprison.com/jobs if you want to join the team.
This isn't the only haunted experience in Joliet. What makes Joliet such fertile ground for terrifying adventures?
I mean, Joliet's got a lot of history, right? And with history comes a lot of spooky things happening over the years. So that's got to be part of it. I think the old Joliet prison's got to be part of it too. So, you know, where there's history, there's ghosts, right?
Well, thank you so much. Not sure if we're going to try it out for ourselves after the show wraps. For now, thank you in advance for not scaring us and for showing up with us here. Once again, that was Brian Kopp, Senior General Manager of the old Joliet Haunted Prison. Back to you.
Nice work, Amanda. Nothing scares you, I can tell. Up next, why a local musician thinks virtual showcases should continue, even once the pandemic has ended. But first, a look at some events happening around town this weekend.
As the Chicago art scene slowly begins to re-embrace in-person performances, one Rogers Park artist says sharing music virtually is an experience he's just not quite ready to give up. Arts correspondent Angel Ito introduces us once again to harmonica and piano player Corky Siegel.
I use my musical experiences to bring blues and classical together.
Corky Siegel is a singer-songwriter that has created a sound known as chamber blues.
Chamber blues is a juxtaposition of blues and classical. In this particular case, it's a string quartet, classical string quartet, staying within the realm of classical sounding music. And me, the blues player, playing blues harmonica and blues piano, and sometimes vocals, staying within the realm of blues, not blending the two together.
It's a style he developed as a composer after years of working in the music industry as a harmonica and piano player.
I came out of the blues in the 60s under the wing of Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters, and I had a gig every Thursday night at Pepper's Show Lounge from 9 at night till 4 in the morning, and all these players came and sat in with us and spent the whole night with us every Thursday night. So this experience of blues and classical was given to me. Now, what there is in chamber blues is the compositions itself, and giving great honor to classical music and great honor to blues, and not wanting to lose the characters of each, but having them work together. And the secret is in the notes and how they're put together. And the way I write one note at a time. And then I say, let's try this. Let's try this. So the music, what you're hearing is years and years and years of trial and error.
The culmination of that trial and error has been heard regularly throughout the pandemic in Siegel's ongoing virtual showcases. This weekend, he'll feature the best of those performances in the Damn Pandic with a number of musical artists of many genres from around the world.
I always have thought of music in a very spiritual sense. I always feel this very strong connection with humanity and nature. So the video platform really offers exaggerating that feeling of connection even more. In this format, they could see everyone's faces. They're in their own creative spaces. They could see their personalities shine through.
As for this unique marriage of classical and blues music, Siegel encourages people to take in a sound that he says can't be heard anywhere else.
One time someone said to me, you know, I'm a classical purist. Can you explain to me why I love chamber blues so much? People love it. They don't necessarily understand it, but they love it.
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Angel Ito.
Toronzo Cannon, Eric Clapton, Marcella Detroit are just some of the featured guest artists in Friday's virtual concert. Visit our website for more information on where you can get tickets for the Best of the Damn Pandic. And tomorrow night at 8, WTTW premieres Inventing Improv, a Chicago story special. It may be Chicago's greatest cultural export, improvised theater that was carried out into the world by the likes of Bill Murray, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, and Stephen Colbert. But this art form wasn't created by a funny man. It was devised here by a woman who wasn't out for laughs. Here's a preview.
All these games force immediate act, to act.
Viola Spolin was a social worker turned theater guru. She would give birth to a new kind of theater in the 1930s using her innovative theater games.
One person will go out of the room, and the group decides who this person is. He returns. You are to communicate to them who they are without telling them. They're not to guess, and wait for who he is to emerge out of the relationship, out of the environment.
The thing about Viola's work that really impressed me and changed me in many ways, changed me not just as an actor, changed me as a person. Viola, in her work, put you in contact with another person in a way you don't usually come into contact with people. You really look at them and you observe what they're going through, which is the beginning of empathy.
The goal is to be as exact a mirror as you can be.
Make your feet into their feet. Make sure that your face is their face. The games that she created are about the space between people. I'm going to take the focus off of myself and I'm going to put it on the other. That the games create ensemble. And relax.
And in time, Viola and her games would revolutionize American comedy.
Everything that is being done comedically and with improvisation, all of this stuff happened because of Viola.
What a great story. Again, Inventing Improv, a Chicago Stories special, premieres tomorrow night at 8 on WTTW. And we're back to wrap things up right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
And that's our show for this Thursday night.
Please join us tomorrow night at 7 for the Week in Review. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman.
And I'm Paris Schutz. Thank you so much for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a great evening.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm dedicated to preserving the dignity and rights of all individuals.